Welcome to the middle school heredity and traits handbook lesson. So I'm going to mute the bees in the background so that you're able to hear me a little better. Notice how on this lesson, I can click between the case lesson and the handbook lesson. So for day one, you want to click on the handbook lesson. It says use the arrows to navigate through the pages. Click here to begin. All right. It says all the animals and plants need to reproduce. To reproduce means to make more animals and plants, right? And so you can click on anything here in orange and it tells you what all of these words mean, right? And so in case you want to look anything up, right, you have a bar here to navigate between all the words. You can search words up and then basically this is a glossary for you. All right, and so if we click along, we've got farmers grow fruit and vegetable plants for people to eat. Bees help farmers by pollinating their plants. Click to see what would happen if there were no bees. So here we've got a split screen, right? You have clearly less fruits available. Farmers grow fruit and vegetable plants for people to eat, right? And so without bees, we wouldn't have as much produce available. So again, without bees, there would not be enough food in grocery stores for people to eat. So how do bees pollinate plants? How do they help plants reproduce? And so bees, they get the food they need from flowers on plants. So if you notice bees outside, they're usually near flowers, and what they're doing is they are taking in the nectar, right? And so they collect the nectar and pollen for food. And the pollen sticks to hairs on the bee's body. And so when bees go back to their hive, they use the nectar to make honey. The bees that live inside a beehive are called a colony, as you probably already know, right? Here's the colony. And each bee has just one queen bee, about 50,000 worker bees and about 1,000 drone bees, right? So you have this drone male, worker female, etc., right? And so here we're looking at the symbols for male and female. Most animals reproduce when a male and female mate. Queen bees fly out of the hive to mate with the male drone bees. Go inside the hive, off we go. And so here the queen bee returns to the hive and she lays eggs in the honeycombs. And she can lay about 2,000 eggs a day. Worker bees take care of the eggs as they hatch and grow into babies. There they are. When two parents mate and create offspring, right? We said earlier that offspring is another word for kids. Like a queen bee mating with a drone bee, it is called sexual reproduction. If all the bees in the hive come from the queen, how are they related? A, all the bees in the hive are cousins. B, all the bees in the hive are sisters and brothers. And C, all the bees in the hive are aunts and uncles. Go ahead and make your selection. Offspring can look and behave like their parents, right? So you've got the parents here, and here's the offspring. The ways that animals and plants look or behave are called traits, right? And so if we're looking at a trait, traits are characteristics of plants and animals. If a fruit plant has a large fruit, the fruit size is a trait. Traits are made from genes. This offspring got the trait for white spots from its parent. And these traits are inherited from parents. Right? And so to inherit something means you're getting something from your parents. Offspring, right, kids inherit traits from their parents. You can see traits such as characteristics in animals and plants. This characteristic that we're looking at here is a light brown fur color. For example, deer can have different fur colors. The color of a deer is a characteristic inherited from its parents. So you have several types of deer here. You can see the different fur colors. How an animal behaves is also a trait. If an animal is very aggressive, they could pass that trait onto their offspring. Aggressive means an animal that will attack quickly, right? A trait for aggression can be passed on to offspring. And so if this animal has an aggressive trait, this trait can be passed on to their offspring, right? Their kid. Let's look at an example. And so African bees look like European bees. Right? Here's African bees and European bees, but the African bees are very aggressive and will attack other animals to protect the hive. So there's a bird trying to attack the hive. They're like, nope, not today. European bees are more calm and do not attack other animals as much. And so you can imagine what ends up happening. Right? It's less likely that the beehive of the African bees is going to get invaded by predators as much as the European bees. Which bees do you think will survive better? So go ahead and answer that. The environment can change the traits of an animal or plant. Let's look at bees to understand how the environment can change traits. Try changing how much honey a larva eats to see how it changes the adult bee traits. Drag honey to feed the larva. Okay? Okay, that's your normal size trait, normal amount of honey. Drag honey to feed the larva. If you have not a lot of honey, right, a low amount, let's see what happens to the bee. So it's a small size trait. Which of the changes below are examples of the environment changing a trait? You can pick more than one. Which of the changes below are examples of the environment changing a trait? So go ahead and do that. Next, we have genes, right? We're on to genes here. When a parent creates offspring, they pass on information called genes. Genes are the instructions for what traits an animal or plant will have. So if this double-stranded helix is called DNA, right? Right here, this section, this portion of DNA is the gene for the cat's eye color. So we're going to zoom into that, right? If a cat has a gene for blue eye color, it will have the trait of blue eyes. Change the genes below to see how it changes the trait. So if I bring this green eye gene over here, there goes the cat with green eyes. Now, if you drag the other gene and swap the traits, then the trait changes, right? When the gene is changed, the trait changes too. How do genes work? Genes are located in the nucleus of cells. Each gene is different, has a specific set of instructions, right? So there's the nucleus of the cell. We learned about all sorts of cells there were 2 trimesters ago, right? When we were looking at human body systems. And so inside the nucleus, you have your DNA, and inside the DNA, you have little segments of DNA, little sections of DNA. They're called genes. And these instructions tell cells what proteins to make, right? Proteins are made by cells and they give bodies their traits. They're also a nutrient found in food that's important in terms of your healthy diet. Proteins give the body its traits, and so this means proteins make the traits of an animal or a plant. For example, cats have genes for fur color. If a cat has a gene for gray fur, the skin cells will make a protein that will make the fur gray. Right? So it all starts with that DNA and this section of DNA called a gene. And this DNA section is then converted into a protein, and that protein has the instructions for how it appears in real life. Important fact, parents pass on genes that make proteins that make traits. Each parent has many genes they can pass on. This means offspring have variety, right? Variety means that you have many different options. If everything is the same, there is no variety. There are over 20,000 genes in the human body alone. So let's learn how traits help bees protect their hives. Bees need to protect their colony and honey from predators, right? Predators is an animal that hunts and kills other animals for food. Bees use their traits to help protect the hive. So these birds eat insects like bees. And so some important traits bees use for protection are aggression, size, and venom. Another example of a bee predator are wasps. And wasps, they can eat honey for food. When wasps enter a hive, they can kill many of the bees. There's the wasp. Yep. If a wasp goes near a hive, the bees will attack the wasp. They surround the wasp and make a bee ball. This makes the middle of the bee ball very hot, right? They create heat with their muscles. And the heat kills the wasp. The bees attacked the wasp as a group, and by working together, they protect their hive. This is an example of an animal group behavior. A group behavior is what animals do together to survive. This can include moving together to find more food or hiding from predators. Group behaviors help animals like bees survive. So what other things do bees do to protect their hives? Another way they protect their hives, as you know, is by stinging their predators, right? And so bees have stingers on their tails that have venom. The stinger venom can kill small animals. Bee stings are also very painful for larger animals. Bees sting larger animals to make them go away from their hive. So that bird just got stung several times. And so now this section you are going to review. You've completed the Heredity and Traits Handbook. You learned about bees, reproduction, and traits. You can review the handbook by clicking the buttons below. Okay, and so that's it for day 1 Gizmo.